When looking into video games and how they are seen by most people, oftentimes they are typically viewed as either a waste of time or a mindless activity. However, video games can have a stronger impact on people than meets the eye. In particular, games often invoke choice and decisions into what the player does and how the game is played. As a result of this, choice allows for a unique playing experience in certain games, as well as increased enjoyment for some of these games. On top of simply having choice, video games have an overarching impact that can challenge a person in the real world. In particular, many games require that players have a strong and quick decision-making process, as well as a strong moral base for the outcome of many games. On top of that, there are many things that video games help in, and one of them is the decision-making process. Almost every game we see now requires decisions to be made, and understanding the impact of these decisions as well. Video games can help people who have trouble making decisions in a short amount of time improve at this skill. In a lot of games that require decisions to be made, the decisions must be made in a set time frame. Even games that don't seem to be all that complex, like sports games such as the NBA 2K series and the Madden NFL series, feature career modes where decisions must be made under a timer, and the impact of these decisions change how your career goes and also where you play and whatnot. Many games require this decision-making process, and they may have a greater impact on the player than the player may realize. When it comes to decision-making, many of these decisions are based in moral standards as well. Morality systems are found in many games. Two specific examples that come to mind are Infamous and Red Dead Redemption 2, and they base overall gameplay on the choices that you make. Both games have a morality scale that impacts the overall outcome of the game. Specifically, in the game Red Dead Redemption 2, you are an outlaw in the late 1800s Wild West, and throughout the game you are given the choice of two sides to be. You can either be honorable or dishonorable. And the moral impact of these decisions does change the game and can add perks to the overall gameplay experience. For example, if you choose to be honorable, you can receive discounts on many items in the stores. Additionally, whichever side you choose impacts the ending of the game that you get. If you choose the honorable path, your ending will be a more honorable ending, while vice versa for the dishonorable path. The morality in these games may impact the player in real life and not just in the video game, and why video games have an overall stronger impact on people than others may realize.
Every time a player is faced with a choice, they are faced with a question. Is this how I want to play the game? Most of the time, these choices won't impact the story, but rather how the player progresses through the game. These should be something as innocuous as choosing a short sword over a long sword in Terraria, or it could be as critical as choosing to kill or spare in Undertale. Regardless of the scope of the impact, the choice changes how much the player enjoys their experience. Undertale is phenomenal in regards to the impact of player choice, even though the choice is fairly binary at a macro level. When faced with a monster, the player can interact in two different ways. Either the player can attack the monster, or the player can interact with the monster. For every monster, the player has this choice, and the results of the encounter do different things. By acting with every monster, the player can see relationships form, and they become a part of the underground world. Monsters can still be aggressive, but you see friendships develop between the boss monsters, and the story progresses. And you can learn some things about the origins of the monster world. Slaying every monster you face leaves you seeing a very different world. The regions around you slowly empty, and eventually you can walk up to an empty shop and just take the goods. The boss monsters grow more aggressive as they try and defend their home, and after the player has slayed everything, they reach the genocide ending. Anything between killing everything and befriending everyone results in slightly different final fights and dialogue. Regardless of what ending the player gets, they got there by choosing what they wanted to do. Not every choice in a game impacts the story as much as they do in Undertale. Choices can just change how the player plays. In most role-playing games, you can choose a particular class or choose a specific kit. While not a role-playing game or a particularly story-driven game, the first-person shooter Overwatch is a good example of how choosing a particular class changes how the player plays. Some players want to be the sniper, picking people off in the backline. Some want to be in the middle of the chaos, bursting down their enemies. And some want to be the tank, protecting the rest of their team from incoming damage. and others want to be the supports, healing their team or helping in other ways. Regardless, the player can choose to play for their best enjoyment. By giving the player a bunch of options, they are able to play in a way that seems the most fun.